Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in again. If you're not familiar with this show, this is Open Source Friday, where I speak to someone or a maintainer, to be specific, every week, every Friday, about their open source projects. So, one, we can get exposure to different open source projects out there that we can get involved in. And then, two, so we can learn a little bit about their journey and how we can get involved in open source as well. I see people in the chat already saying hello. So, just gonna highlight a couple of comments. Hi y'all, let me know where you're watching in from. I love to always see when people are like watching from like India or like Europe or whatever. So super excited, and I'm particularly excited about today's stream because we're gonna be talking about like fashion, which I love. So and I love to see like tech get incorporated with different fields, right? Like fashion and cooking and all these other things that are out there. So instead of me just talking this whole time, I'd love to have our guest today, Sue Spencer, introduce herself.
Hi, Rosie. I'm Sue Spencer. My background is as a senior computer scientist. I've contracted with NASA and other agencies in healthcare and private industry. I discovered seamless technology and created a prototype by studying over 100 pattern making systems. And I've been involved in open source for about 9 years. My background is in political science. My degree is political science from a women's college. Uh, but I decided not to go to law school. I just wasn't feeling it. And I had been doing statistical analysis of electoral returns. So I just decided to continue to work with computers. And I'm about 2 or 3 classes shy of a master's degree, but had a baby, never worked out to complete the degree. So I'm still, so and I never was, because of these qualifications, I was never hired as a programmer proper. I was working in data centers and doing systems analysis and trying to make things work from an architectural perspective, but I never was a full-time programmer. Um, so in network architecture and security, before it was even called cybersecurity, I would get these trouble tickets about network performance and application failure. And then I would get down to analyzing packets and discover that like 9 times out of 10, the problem isn't the network, it's the application, or it's some sort of provisioning problem over thin pipes. And these days, provisioning, thin pipes, data transfer is not really a problem. But back then, it was a big deal. And people didn't quite have the grasp of application APIs that they do now. So there was a lot of room for error there. So, uh, so I would have to prove explicitly how it was not the network, that it was the application, where the application was failing, or the data transfer, or something, and but have to show it, I mean, beyond a shadow of a doubt, in a politically palatable way. Because no one wanted to hear from the person who was essentially the computer janitor. What was wrong with their pet project, right? So this is how I got systems analysis superpowers. and the ability to question everything, to peel back problems to their innermost layer and create solutions that will get us where we want to go. Because you always need to know where you're going to go to make the right decision. And you don't always know that when you first start a project. So hindsight is always 2020, right? So that's my background.
That's awesome. Okay, when I went on your LinkedIn, I did not know all of this. I didn't know that like you worked. I think you said NASA, right?
For
And
now, as a subcontractor with SAIC and Computer Science Corporation,
no,
typical government agency contract.
that's cool though, right? Like I just thought I was like, how did she go from system analyst to being an open source maintainer? But I think like you telling your story made like it put the pieces together. And it's interesting that you have like a political science background and you had to like essentially explain the technology to those folks, but in a way that translates to them.
That's warm and friendly. Really almost a dichotomy. I say, here's a problem, but I feel your pain.
Yeah, no, I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of similar to my role as a developer advocate, where it's like I'm speaking to different types of people about tech, and then like I have to translate it in different ways. I do want to say hi to a couple familiar people. We got Andrea, a GitHubber from Florida, and then we got Perdumna, who's always tuning in. So I appreciate that. So I loved hearing about your background experience, and I think you kind of talked a little bit about like you did network analysis, but I'm curious like how did you go from like that part like systems analyst to like fashion?
Okay. Okay. When my husband and I got married, he had two kids and I had one, and his oldest and my son were like a month apart. They were 11, and his youngest was 8. So we had these three kids, and we didn't know if they were going to get along, if they were going to beat the crap out of each other, or what. So, so I left my job as NASA as a manager of NASA's Budget and Time Network, which was still computer janitor work. The other hallway was where they received the data from the ISS and satellites, and they wore shiny shoes and suits and stuff. And we were jeans and very low key people. So it was fun. I enjoyed the job, but really I was looking forward to my life with our blended family so much. So I left to drive the minivan. Um, and it was great. It was the best decision of my life. I loved being there for them, to provide what they needed. But since I wasn't working, my mind started going off in weird directions. And back in my day, it was like big new wave stuff, and I wore great clothes, and I thought I'm gonna do that again. I don't have to wear jeans and t-shirts. I can do some really cool stuff, and nothing fit me. Like, what the heck has happened here? I couldn't find clothes that fit at any price, and I realized this was a systemic problem because it was across the board for everyone, not just me. Because I'm like the average American woman or average woman across the globe. I'm at 5'6". I wear a size 14, 16. I'm not this skinny little rail that I was when I was 20. But no one makes clothes for me. It's like, what is going on here? This is terrible. I can afford it. Don't they want my money? Hello. And it turns out that 67% of women are size 14 and above, and only 10% of brands create sizes in this range. Like, that's so much money left on the table. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting like hot about this now. I'm like, okay, why? It's because once you get the methodology that we use to create sizes, stops working at about size 10 or 12. I mean, it stops working fitting anybody. Um, so I looked at that methodology. I looked at all the assumptions that went into fashion design and discovered what the problem was. Um, and I found out how like current fashion software and the industry as a whole is like failing us as consumers and also creating an ecological nightmare at the same time for the same reason. And it's based on poor fitting clothes, right?
That's so interesting. So you're saying the measurements, like just making sure the measurements that they create for people who are or women who are size 14 to 16, which is like the most common size, it doesn't work for basically most people.
That's it.
Which that's crazy.
And there's a reason for this. You know, um, let's see. Well, I realized, doing all this research, I realized that all fashion design software has basically encoded 100-year-old workflows, very inefficient, and it creates sizes that are based on Victorian era ideals of body shapes that are based on Northern Europeans, tall, skinny Northern Europeans that never actually existed. These godlike creatures. Like, no, and that's what our base sizes are based on. Our body proportions, our pattern making formulas reflect those body proportions that that don't reflect real people. They reflect statues, people that never existed. Um, so, I figured out how to sort of remove that ethnic bias from the fashion design process.
Yeah.
Because what happens is we create like a base size, and
Yeah.
let's consider that it fits a Barbie, and then
Yeah.
we create a little ad bit at the shoulders, the waist, the hips, whatever, to make the next big size, and then about size 10 or 12 just totally falls apart. It stops fitting anybody.
Yeah.
And it's easier for smaller sizes to fit smaller bodies because there's these bodies are a bit straighter and there's a lack of curvature. So, the differences in fit don't really appear that great, because you can move around in an envelope and it works fine. Um, but when you get to size 12, 14, 15, you start having curves. You have experience as real people, whether those curves are from being an athlete that's very, very fit, or your base shape is just different than that ideal. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do really with fat percentages. It's actually just the typical variation of the human body. We're not responding to it, and it's just showing up. We're just seeing it when we get to size 12, 14, 16. But it's there the whole way. So we rip it out and we have a much better fit. Um, so when you're using current fashion design software that has these assumptions and workflows embedded in it, and you can't get out of those, there's no flexibility there. There's then what you do is when you get to size 12 or 14 and you want to make sizes in those beyond size 10, 12, you have to start your product development again from scratch, which adds an additional minimal 2 to 5K in cost per design, per market. So if you want to go into plus size market or beyond 12, 14, you have that extra, you've doubled your expenditure. If you also want to go into petites, right, you've tripled your expenditure. Every new market, you're like adding on. And so that's why nobody does it. It's like, well, we just create regular sizes, 0 to 10, to maybe 12, and that's it. And then, they distribute it everywhere, those sizes everywhere, just to make sure that they get those products in front of consumers who happen to be those sizes.
Yeah.
But this results in out of every 100 garments made,
Yeah.
60 go to landfill because 60 are sold and about 20 are returned. So you take those 40 that are unsold plus the 20 that are returned, and that just goes to landfill without ever being worn. And that's our ecological disaster. It's completely unsustainable. So, fashion knows that it needs to go to an on-demand, you know, get the order first and then make the product, but they don't know how to make it fit you properly. So their returns are still going to be, 35% of everything sold. So Seamless designs actually fit real people in bespoke ways better than anything else out there. We have industry spies who tell us what's going on in all these companies. So we know we're on the right track, and we know that our results are much better than theirs. And our 35,000 fans, or 37,000 fans around the world, agree.
Yeah, wow. This is so interesting. And this makes a lot of sense because I'm like, a lot of clothes don't fit me. And
So
you're right, because there's different types of body types, different ethnicities, just everybody in the world is different. I wanted to just quickly let you know there's like a little bit of like feedback in the background from you, but I don't know if it's something you could fix. In the
I
meantime,
don't
I'll
know.
highlight some comments. Like someone said, yeah, people have different um anatomy. And then Chrissy on Twitch said, shout out to Sue for adding her open source project to women led open source. It's a repo that a friend of mine created after noticing women in the open source community are not being highlighted enough. That's awesome. And shout out to you for creating that project as well. Really quick question. Well, You know what? Hold on the question, Chrissy. I'm probably gonna ask a similar question, but I want to make sure that people get the whole overview. Um, so okay, so you talked about the problem that there is, or how you got into creating this. Tell us like the name of your project, what it is, what does it do exactly?
Okay, it's Seamly 2D, and that is, we called it Seamly 2D because we know we're going to go into 3D, and we already have a prototype developed for that, where we take our these clothes that fit you. We have your measurements, we have these designs. We can export the designs in OBJ mesh. We can take your measurements, create your avatar, not a generalized avatar from a 5,000 body database, and go, oh, this is closest to you, and then stretch the pattern image over or the design image over your avatar, and say, oh, this is how it's going to look like on you, which is what you get right now from the industry. Other 3D solutions, not really. It's motion mirrors. It's so we wrote it from beginning to actually produce real results.
Wow.
So we're pretty excited about the future for this project. And just to, if you'd like me to, I can give you a demo of what we do.
Of course, yes. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the 2D version, but I also can't wait for whenever the 3D version comes out that we can fit it to our own actual measurements.
Yes, and you know what it's going to look like. You go, well, no, I don't like that. That's terrible. I hate that. Let me find something else. But you know ahead of time.
Yeah.
You can take it and you can show it on social media. You go, okay, Keith, what do you want? You're like A or B, and people go B, A sucks. And so you go, okay, well, I'm buying B, or I'm not buying B, but I like it.
Yeah,
I
cuz
don't
I
like it right now, so I'll just wait.
yeah, cuz I hate buying clothes online that I think is my fit. I follow the measurements the measurement chart, and then it still doesn't fit me. So this is exciting. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Okay.
I'll pull up your demo.
All right, this is a pair of pants, and it doesn't look like much right now, but seriously, this is a great pair of pants. And let me show you. I didn't show you Moana. She's wearing these pants, right? Can I read this?
Yes, bring Moana up.
I'm gonna bring her forward. I like to use her instead of a dress mannequin because she actually has arms and legs.
I love it.
Can you see her? I'm only seeing my screen on the.
Yeah, we can see her.
All right, well, she's great. But you can see that, it's nice. It fits her. I've put electrical tape around all of her big, basic measurements. And then taken a white grease pencil and marked the other ones so I can, take accurate measurements. And so I've made her a pair of pants.
Yeah.
And what you see in the back is that even though there's a big difference between her hips and her waist,
Hmm.
the waist isn't gapping in the back like you normally see. Like
Yes.
normal pants, they would be down like this. Everything, this is what you get in stores. And even following pattern making formulas, this is what you get. But with Seamly, I'm able to accurately uh, produce for her measurements, for her the relationship between her, and so there's no gap.
Yeah.
So you don't get the, even with the lower jeans level, you wouldn't get that sort of plumber's pants look.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I hate when I have that gap.
And then
Or
I can make these pants for me as well. All I have to do is add my measurements and it just rescales like that.
wow. How does that work? I don't.
Okay, so let's look at this. I'm going to zoom in and we're going to look at a couple of points so you can see what's involved with
Oh, they have like
this.
letters on them. Or
Right. So this particular point comes down from a point above it. At the first point is WS. I don't know if you can see this or not.
yes.
Oh, I just changed it. Wait, I named it WS for waist side. And so the point name is HS for hip side. And you can use whatever naming scheme you like, whatever you prefer. And then the length from the waist side to the hip level is what I've defined as a waist to hip length. And we can go in and take a look at that. Let me cancel that. Go to measurements, look at our variables. And so you program a pair of pants the way you program anything. This is like coding, only better.
Wow.
And so you can go in and waist to hip length. There it is, and it's taking from my body measurements. So this is a variable in the program, waist to hip length. But the parameters that we add to this program are the body measurements. So I hope you can follow that. So
Yes.
the actual, I figure you guys would. So this is the, can you see this? Okay. This is the, so these are the actual body measurements. And we've named our body measurements using anatomical points so that translations from language to language aren't confusing. So we may not be using the typical fashion language to refer to a body measurement, but it is precise and it's so that's why you have the opportunity to create a variable in your pattern that uses the terminology that you like.
Oh.
So if you're using a pattern making book and you're just going, okay, I just want to program this up, but you can't do with anything else. You can you can type in your formulas and capture the vocabulary used in the book. So you get really good results.
This is
But,
awesome. Even if it's not using like the fashion vocabulary, I feel like it makes it more accessible for whatever other people may call that part of the clothing.
and it enables you to take those pattern making formulas that exist and improve them so that they actually fit real people. So you can identify as, oh, hey, they're just using body proportion here. Why don't I transpose that into like a percentage of a body measurement? And that gives you much better results. But, textbook is not out yet on that. It's to come. So if anybody wants to help me write that textbook,
I mean, you could open source it.
at
That could
hello@seamlay.net. Send me an email. You're good at photography or screenshots and text and layout and making things look beautiful, which I'm not. I'm just a nerd girl with no design talent, and I've written this design program. So anyway, so that's kind of how we get from body measurements to the actual formula to create a pair of pants. And what we do is we have some operations where we can create a new pattern piece and we can start like here and start selecting objects to use in our pattern. And we go around in like a clockwise fashion and we define these pattern pieces. And here are the pieces that we define. And every time the measurements change, it just ripples throughout the system. You don't have to go in and erase and redraw like you do currently. Or if you're using Adobe Illustrator, which a lot of people do for pattern design, you can make these changes, but you're introducing error. You still have to sort of walk the seam to make sure you haven't done, and it's very time consuming. So we just kind of automate all that so you can focus on creativity and get straight to making your clothes, right?
Yeah, so just to make sure, if you change a measurement of one part of the clothes, it'll change it on the other. Like if you change the pant leg, it'll change it on the other side. Wow, that's awesome.
So like I could go in, let's go back to draft, and I can say, all right, let me pick another one. Let me pick what is this showing me right now? It's showing me. Let me show you Moana's measurements. See, that's her. Those are her measurements. You can tell that her proportions are completely different than mine. I mean, so they didn't. This is not a pattern that has a particular shape, and it just kind of scales up, but retains its basic proportions to maybe fit her and then maybe fit me. This actually, there's no, it actually scales to fit you as an individual.
Yeah.
So, or you're better. You can define better fit, ready to wear sizes as well. If you want to just, zoom in on a particular clientele and say, I've made these, let people try them on. So you can do the pre-production model, the current fashion industry model, but your sales will be better and your returns will be lower.
Wow.
So we enable that as well.
That's awesome. We have we have two questions from the audience that I think are interesting, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's fine.
Judy asked, and I don't know about fashion design, so I don't know what this means. But Judy asked, can you do grading size changes for different sizes from this pattern?
We are working on our multi-size function right now. It is minimally functional, and you can define your individual sizes based on a data table. If you've got one, you can use your whatever you've developed as your secret sauce for your secret sizing. But most of the industry considers their sizing methodology to be a trade secret. So why that is, I don't know. But So we let you do that as well, but our multi-size feature could use some work. So if you're a C++ programmer and would like to help out to save the planet and also provide yourself with some great fitting jeans, we can work it out. I can create you patterns, whatever you want, if you like fix that problem for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and I think near closer to the end of the stream, I'll put up the link for people to be able to contribute. And talking about that, someone asked, Dario asked or mentioned, hey, the app should be a spa app on the web. Is that something that you'll eventually do, or
Oh, you want me to show you something that I just got this morning? This is
yeah,
late breaking news.
yeah,
And it's it's buggy. Um,
I'm ready.
okay, let me log in.
Okay, go ahead. Take your time. Take your time.
Uh,
While that happens, I'll while you log in, I'll just highlight other
I think
comments.
I'm here. Hang on.
Someone
I
said,
Yeah. All right.
no
Um,
worries.
so let me open this as a new window
Okay.
and then drag this over to this other monitor so you can see it. Okay. Can you see that?
Oh my gosh! So it
It's
is a
running in the
spot.
web as WebAssembly. Huh? It doesn't work great, but it's working. We got it ported to Qt6 from Qt5, and we have some of our Qt widgets are compatible through the browser, but we have to convert these Qt widgets to QML. So if you're that person, you can do that. Please contact me. Um,
Yeah.
but I'll just create a new pattern real quick with this, and you can see where it dies. So okay, there's a WASM cursor error, but here we'll just create a new point to the side, and I'm just going to put in just a value at angle 0, and there we go. And then I'll just create another point here and angle like 45. Where am I? Okay. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Okay, try it again. I'm sorry. But
No, but this is good. Like this is obviously like it's a work in progress, but it's good that you've already started bringing this over to the web. This is
yeah,
awesome.
so I'm not sure if I can create a piece. Let's see what happens. I'm going to do a
Okay.
new one. We're going to start here, go counterclockwise, figure this out. Hey, application exit. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh well.
That's
It's
okay. We got to see it.
we are moving to the web. So
Yeah.
it can run on, on any computer.
I
We
think
currently we compile every Sunday night. We have a growing release every week for Linux, Windows, and Mac, and that is tremendously difficult. It is to keep up with all the little changes that happen with Mac OS and Linux desktops, and it's just and support Windows 32. It's just a lot. So
yeah.
anyway, let me close that. That's not very interesting.
I could only imagine. No, I think people are excited. We have people that are watching. Someone said I'm an engineer who was a designer on Pamela. I don't know what Pamela is, but I think that's good news for you.
Please contact me, Judy. Hello@simly.net.
And people are asking, I think out of being interested in like contributing, they said they see a fork on GitHub. Can you tell us more about like the technologies and the architecture of the software, and are they allowed to build external plugins?
It's
Like
open source. You're allowed to do whatever you want. Um, but Dario, if you have ideas, let's talk. Again, hello@simly.net. Send me some email, and we'll set up like a Zoom call to discuss.
awesome.
And,
Yes.
and I do understand that QT is crazy. I see another
Yes.
comment. But you know what? It was a way to stand it up quick and easy.
Yeah.
It was very, very good.
You had to do what you had to do. Someone Pamela, oh, that's why someone said I was a designer, Pamela. They were responding to
Ooh.
the other person.
Oh,
Someone
so someone else
I'm
is Pamela. Okay,
yeah.
Pamela, again, I'm going to say it again and repeat it. Contact me at hello@seamly.net. Please
Okay.
send email.
I'm gonna
Pamela, Judy, Dario. all of you.
Yeah, people are excited just from the demo, but I'll let you
You
keep
get
going
to
back
save the planet too. And we're in use at the London College of Fashion. University of Manchester requires all of their PhD students in research on digital fashion, where physical fashion has matching digital assets. They require them to use Seamly because you have complete control over the pattern. I mean, and it's like, oh
Really?
my gosh, there's a lot happening here. So we think we're doing well, but we don't have the money yet. But we're working on it.
That's awesome that it's required by other colleges, like for students to use that. Like, what a big milestone.
Oh, well, the current fashion industry software is so hard to use, and the
Yeah.
workflow is just difficult and antiquated. And a lot of it's based on manual. You do this portion manually, and then you digitize it, and then you grade it, and then it's like, wait, what?
That's
This is 1968, right? Like,
yeah, that's so
yeah,
fun.
basically. When they first created fashion design software in 1968, it hasn't changed that much since.
Wow. Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of different things. We're still living like we're back in the day. I think a lot of people want to know more of the technology. So we have C++, we have Qt. What other technologies have been used to build this project?
Well, we have some libraries like QMU Parser, and we have we like to we want to export our patterns as a 3D object. So if you're good at with the ASIMP library and you want to integrate it, which is an open source project by the way, and you want to integrate it into our software, contact us. That's a great thing to do. Um, but the stack is not that great. It's not that deep. It's Qt, C++, couple of libraries. That's it.
Okay.
So I know it's a very narrow technology, but if you want to get in and rewrite it in JavaScript, let's talk.
Yeah.
Because I would love to do that. It's just we're sort of married to our current technology, which is why we're going with WebAssembly. And Leading
No,
Technologies out of Leeds, England, has been super supportive in working with us to make this happen.
I
And
love that you did it in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
they're using open source technology for, I guess it's a Chirp, which is on GitHub, and they're the global experts in converting code to WebAssembly, and they're working with us. And we're very, very honored that they're doing that.
Wow, that's awesome. Oh my gosh.
So
I'm just
shout out
saying.
to Stefano De Rossi, CEO of Leading Technology, and Martin Yaga, and everyone else on their team.
Wow, that's awesome. I think it's actually smart to use WebAssembly for it rather than JavaScript. Even
It,
though like I'm a JavaScript girl, like I think it's the right move.
well, in terms of business risk, at a certain point, you do have to, we know this works. Let's stand it up, run it as WebAssembly, and we, make changes to the code, just convert, and have releases every couple of months,
Yeah.
rather than every week. But we can take what we have and then convert it and stand it up in the web so that everybody can have access to it. Because we want people who have tablets to be able to run our software. And PC sales are plummeting. Tablet sales and tablet hybrids are exponentially growing. So that's
Wow.
where we want to be. We want to run in the web.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. I think that's a great plan. And I think we had some good questions from Chrissy that I wanted to just highlight. Um, She said, "How will you ensure that avatar designs reflect a diverse audience?" But I think you kind of showed that with the being able to tweak it to your own. But I'd
We
love to.
use your measurement.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
by definition inclusive of everyone. So your avatar will be you. It won't be, oh, we think this looks a little bit like you. We're going to go, this is the nearest thing we could find in our current database. So we're going to show it on you. And that's not really it. So, and then we can, if you're interested, we can do face, skin tone, whatever you want. We can, just, you could be a cat shaped like that if that's what you want. You could wear this close. There's all kinds of things we can do. What we want to do is be able to import your game character.
wow,
And then
yeah,
you design it and export. It's like, ooh. So we are written to be interoperable. Whereas fashion design software is typically proprietary, siloed, doesn't interoperate. You got to manual and do this. And then every time you go from software to software, you lose you lose characteristics, you lose design elements. It's not, they're not meant to work. So we are, you know, we want to have the end-to-end 2D to 3D and back. And you know, people say, oh, well, let's just use AI to design patterns. But the thing is, when you use AI to do that, you get these patterns that you can't actually make in the real world. So it has to be
Mm.
guided from a certain point. So this is unusual in that our AI, which we will get to, which we can do, we know how to do it. Um, it's going to be informed by the fact that we're going to be using either woven or knit materials with certain characteristics. So you have to know what it is you're going to make, what it's going to be made of, because that there's an intrinsic variable about that when you're making pattern designs in this traditional way. Um, that we're using in Seamly 2D, and we're like traditional yet, you know, but we've taken 100 steps in the future, or 100 years in the future in one step with Seamly 2D. But it's still basically we're using pattern making formulas. They're just super improved, super, you know, better.
Yeah.
Um, so when we go to AI, we want to have that inform AI, so
Yeah.
that the results that you get are actually usable and designable and look good on you, and that
Yeah.
you can manipulate it in ways that produce physical products with matching digital product assets.
Yes, because I mean, like you said, AI will have its biases, and like to answer that question, like you said, it's gonna be diverse. It's inherently diverse because you put it to your own measurements. There's some other questions, and I think you kind of talked about how you see your project in the future of going into 3D, of um of going into being able to be a spot in the web, and there's all these other things that you did talk about. But people said, how can people with little to no, I think this is a good question. I don't
Yeah.
have any fashion knowledge. Like, what would I even be able to contribute?
If you want to, like, if you want to contribute documentation, code documentation, if you would like to learn how to run Doxygen, please contact me. If you would like to make a user manual, and even though you don't know fashion knowledge, I think that's a good perspective to have when you're writing the manual, because you don't take anything for granted. It's like, that makes no sense. That's too complicated. You know, we need your pair of eyes, right? We need fresh eyes to look at our user manual, because we really don't have one at the moment. We have 17,000 YouTube channels out there, and Facebook groups in multiple languages, but we don't have anything that we provide ourselves. That is we don't have, what do you call that in science fiction or whatever, or the canon. We don't have a canonical manual of really the source material that should come from us.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's a great call out to people. Of you, as you've been kind of saying, even there's a couple people in the chat who have been like, "Hey, I'm studying computer science. I'm very interested in fashion." Apparently, this person helps to run a student thrift store on campus. So definitely, just want to echo what Sue has been saying. If you're interested, reach out to her at hello@seamly.net. Check out the repository at github.com/fashionfreedom/seamly.2d, and go ahead and contribute to the documentation. Like you said, go ahead and check out some of the issues that are open, and read the contributing guidelines to see how you can be able to contribute your knowledge to this project. I think people are excited, and rightly so.
Because this is like the intersection of sustainability
Yeah.
and creativity. Like,
Yes.
what's not to like? And you can be profitable. Like,
Yeah.
hello, in what other situation have you seen profits associated with sustainability? With
That's so
sustainability.
true.
It's
That's
like,
so
this
true.
this is how you do it.
um, so I'm actually, and I think you did actually already mention this, but before I spoke to you, I was like, I usually don't see fashion things be open source. And maybe for people who are coming in a little bit later, do you want to like reiterate on why you open source this? What are the benefits? You did speak on it, but just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, for one thing, the fashion industry isn't going to change. I've talked to Adidas. I've talked to people work at H&M, and they say, and people at London College of Fashion and all these other institutions, they say the fashion industry isn't listening to us. The only response they give is, well, that's just not the way it's done. It's like, because they don't actually know how it works. They just go, okay, just gotta make. I mean,
That's usually what people say when they don't
analysts.
know why.
They're not ASPE. I know we don't use that word anymore, but and they're not systems analysts. They don't have anybody like me in the industry. So that's what they're saying. They don't know how. And I have people that have worked at companies like Gerber, Lectra, and who are producing, anyway. And they say, they're trying to do this made to measure stuff that use the same old methodologies, and it's not working. And I have people who have quit those companies in frustration because they want to get new results by doing the same old thing. So that's in our favor. So going open source means we don't have to get industry approval. We don't have to work with them. They're not funding it. The results aren't skewed, to favor their current technology. We were able to discover, pinpoint, and implement the correct solution, or correct solution as we see it. That gets us to where we want to go. We built with open source. We were able to build a viable product with proven customer demand. And I compare this to, we've got great product market fit. We did this first, the product first. And that's like getting your peanut butter center already done. And then we're adding the business around it, like the chocolatey outside. So chocolate and peanut butter together. But with private industry, you create the chocolate shell on the outside first, and then try to stuff that peanut butter center in. So you create your product later. And it doesn't always work. You don't always get product market fit. You don't always get. So we do it backwards, but companies that come from the open source world have a much higher percentage of success and profitability than startups from private enterprise, simply because we get our product market fit down first, and we get it through, it's user driven, right? That's the difference. We don't have a company going, well, I think it ought to be like this. It's like the people who are going to use it tell you what it should be, what it should do. And that's very fine grained.
Made for and made by the community. I actually have a question on just in general starting an open source project, right? Like I feel like this is like if you're starting from the beginning, like let's say like back in the day when you first had this idea, it feels like a lot to say like, okay, I'm going to create this open source project that's going to change the fashion industry and it's going to change sustainability. How do you get started in a way that it's not overwhelming? Did you reach out to people first? Did you create some basic designs? Like I don't know.
Okay. I see some other questions in the chat that are super interesting, but
yeah, I'm gonna start those. I started. Yeah.
But to begin my open source journey, I just decided to tackle the technology first, and I would sit on the sofa and just visualize. And my kids would come home from school and they go, "Mom, you're on drugs." Like, yeah, I am, because I'm like, not doing anything for hours, just trying to visualize how this is going to work. And I, did all my research, learned how it's currently done, translated those manual pattern making techniques into geometry, did the math, and so you got to figure out how you're going to approach it from a technical standpoint. But you don't have to actually know the programming, but you kind of need to know what it is you want to accomplish. But beyond that, even if you don't have all of that figured out, the best thing that I did was go to the Libre Graphics meeting convention, and I pitched a talk, and they said, "Yeah, come on, tell us about it." And Libre Graphics meeting is sort of a watering hole every year that for Krita, GIMP, Inkscape, Libre Document or Open Document Foundation, a lot of different open source graphics and creative tools come together for Libre Graphics. And I think it fell apart for COVID, and I don't think that they've kind of come back together since. I'm not sure what the future is for that, but you could find, FOSDEM is a great place to go to sort of maybe have a birds of a feather, send in the things. I want to have a 15-minute, give me a table, and I'll put up a sign that says anybody that wants to talk about this, your new open source project, come meet with me, and you'll get 4 or 5 people. And it's a fantastic thing to do. So your open source conferences that you can get to, please, I highly recommend that route.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm not neglect I won't neglect people in the comments. I just also have to make sure my job is still to make sure we're highlighting open source. So we have Alicia Mork, and they say, as a former pattern maker, now software developer, that's cool. I'm curious how this is set up to integrate with production process for companies to be able to use this for sales. If each, or to be able to use this for sales, if each garment cut will be a different size and a one-time cut. I think this could be really cool and useful, but hard to implement at a large
Well,
scale.
it is being implemented right now. It doesn't get a lot of talk yet, but there's a company in Phoenix. There's several companies around the country that do one-off and at scale. The company in Phoenix does Gerber's made to measure stuff. Um, and there's a $2 billion factory funded by Farfetch and a couple of other companies being built in Portugal just for custom fit on demand fashion because that is the future. The problem is the software that you use to design those clothing really needs to be able to fit people better than our current industry software does. So we are an improvement on that. But that particular process that you're asking about is occurring now as we speak, and it'll just get bigger over time. It
Awesome.
is cool. You're right. I think it is very cool.
And you did talk about how it was comparable to Gerber a bit, right? I think I heard you mention that.
We don't have all the bells and whistles that Gerber does, but we do include a layout feature that you have to pay tens of thousands of extra dollars to get with Gerber. So
Mhm.
ours we have some built-in great stuff that you don't have to pay extra for.
Awesome. Since we only have 14 minutes left, I want to transition into like a little bit more on the open source journey and then ask some of the non-technical questions. So for a little bit, I'll ask those questions so that we can eventually wrap up. But this is a really cool, exciting project. You can tell from the comments that people are excited about this as well, and I hope that you get a couple more contributions or users as well. Um, so so my other question to you is, how do you how do you see the relationship between open source and the fashion technology evolving in the future?
Okay. Can I answer that after I answer Sarah's question about compatibility and whether she can send stuff to CNC machines?
Sure.
I've had people design shoes with Seamlink, and they do layouts based on the size of the layout is the media size that they're feeding to their wider jet cutter for their sole stuff. So yeah, we export SVG, PDF, HPGL, a the fashion whatever AAMA format. So we export in all the industry recognized formats. But okay, so and your question again was
Around the evolving relationship between open source and the fashion industry or
okay.
fashion technology.
Um, well, let's see. There's some other. I think open source is really the only option to get change in the fashion industry because it's so entrenched and there is no competition. There's only a few big players and they meet the needs of big industry players and they don't even meet those needs very well, as I've found out. So the only way to do this is I think through open source and then proving it. Like it's like did you know that at Netscape when they were trying to sell their browser when no one believed what it could do until they actually saw it fully implemented. They went, "Oh wow, why didn't you tell us it could do that?" Oh yeah, we did tell you, but you didn't see it till we did it. So that's kind of where we are. No one really believes us. They're just going to have to see it, and then they'll go, "Oh, mind blown," um, just like with Netscape. Um, so the thing is, we were featured in the keynote address at the Clothing Body Interaction Conference in Berlin 2 months ago. And the comment was made that because the fashion industry has no competition, that the only way to really get change in, and so this is not just my perspective, this is the perspective of several very academics across the planet. These academicians also agree. And let me point out that there's another open source fashion and design tool called Ink Stitch that I believe Lex Neva developed. And I'm not sure, I think it's ongoing. I think it's a valid, so if you want to contribute to embroidery, that's amazing. So I would like to be able to bring in Ink Stitch design into Seamless patterns, so in the layout or in the pattern pieces, so that when the pattern piece scales, the embroidery design scales too. So you know what, does it make sense to you? So that you, so that it looks the same on everybody, and it doesn't look smaller on larger sizes and too big on smaller sizes. That the design itself actually scales, which would be an amazing thing to happen. So if you want to work on that, let me know.
Yeah,
Hello@gateway.net.
that's a great idea. And no, that makes at least that makes sense to me. Like what you said of bringing in there the embroidery, and you don't want that. Okay, because this person had larger measurements, the embroidery looks a little bit smaller or bigger or whatever. You want it to be able to scale. I do see one question from Judy. I'm gonna leave it for like just near the end because we only have 10 minutes. So I kind of want to talk through some of these things about open source really quickly. Um, my other question to you is, what are some challenges? I think I'll combine both questions.
Okay.
And say, what are the challenges, and then what are the rewarding parts of working on an open source?
Okay, the challenges have been finding people who have the time to work on open source software, and it is a problem across the board. So that's why I'm really trying to get people fired up about the ecological benefits, the sustainability benefits of this tool for the planet. So, so if you're into that, which I think a lot of people are, and you have some skill sets in anything related to design and coding, just contact me and we'll figure something out. Um, so again, the challenges are finding team members. And the other challenges that people in industry, especially in Middle America, are very skeptical of open source. They're not familiar with it. They don't understand that 99% of the internet is open source. Google is an open source company. All these, everything that they rely on today, there's all kinds of bits and pieces in your phone that are open source, and we have to interoperate. And it's just the way things are because technology is so complicated. You can't you can't continue that early '80s business model of proprietary siloed software that generates. It's like, oh, that is expired and done. That is dinosaur world. We are now in an area where we have to cooperate. If your technology does not cooperate, if it's not interoperable, then you're going to die. And like Judy Hansen's question is this a middle tool between design and Gerber? Like we are a replacement for Gerber. We do the design, and you can go directly from Seamlink to the manufacturing floor, or you can export in in one of the recognizable formats that Gerber will let you import, and then you can do all your fancy work in Seamlink, and then just pull it into Gerber if you want to continue with some of their modules, if you want to participate. Because one of the things that happens in the fashion industry is that you have to select a manufacturer that accepts your tool, your siloed tool. So you have to find a manufacturer that works with Gerber. You got to find a manufacturer that works with Tucatec or whatever. And with Seamlink, it doesn't matter. We just, if they'll accept a PDF or an AAMA file, it doesn't matter. We do not care. Your manufacturer can be a decentralized DIY collaborative in Barcelona, which exists, by the way, and it'll work. So that's we want to empower everyone.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, I love that. I think what you said about it's not just Middle America. I've even seen just like other technology companies or people even my age, like, oh, I don't want to open source it. Someone will steal the code. I'm like, that's
for goodness
not.
sake. That's what I say, and I'm not that polite always. Because if they were going to do it, they would do it.
Right.
It used to be, I would say, okay, I'm working on this, and then people would say, I've always wanted to do that. That's my idea. And seriously, anybody that's seen a Roadrunner cartoon and seen Wile E. Coyote open up an Acme box that just does this stuff by magic, that's what they think it is. That's what they think fashion is. It's just, it's no big deal. It's hard.
Yeah.
And we've made it easy. We've made it easy because we've put in the effort to make it easy.
Yeah.
But but now now it's pretty obvious. It's like, no, they couldn't. So I don't get those
Yeah,
comments anymore.
it's not easy to make things easy for people, even though people might have that idea in their mind. Um,
Seriously, they are not going to steal your idea.
I'll highlight another comment. Someone said, "Great to see open source tools will seemingly globally." Well, I guess they're saying, will it be globally available to everyone to understand, and could it be learned like other open source tools easily?
We would love to do that. And Ramchandra, if you'd like to work on course material and manuals to make that happen, and translations, we could use a Sanskrit translation or whatever.
Yeah.
If you'd like to do that, let me know. hello@sumi.net.
Awesome. And then I think this will be my like last open source like question to you is like, what are your thoughts on how we can improve diversity in open source? You've kind of you're improving diversity in fashion. So curious on your thoughts on that. It's sometimes even difficult for me to find a lot of guests on the show who are not just white men. Like I try to make a special effort to get women, to get people of different races, to get people of different abilities. But what are your thoughts? Like I still see that limitation. What are your thoughts?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's all a matter of being actually open and providing people that opportunity. Because the requirement, get on GitHub, find an open source project. It's like, what are you talking about? So we have these larger institutions that promote open source. We have these companies that handle sponsorship, payments for GitHub projects. So I think SPI, OSI, even Creative Commons, and GitHub, they could all get together and we could have these open source days on campuses, sponsored by Google, sponsored by Microsoft, sponsored by whatever, and give the opportunity for maintainers to present their open source thing. Is that we're looking for this. These are the opportunities, and just it's like a thing. And this has not happened yet. But I believe that this is the way to get people involved, especially because employers are looking for open source contributions. If you've got a profile on open source, right, that shows your open source contributions in an employer friendly way, then you have a much greater chance of being employed because people look for this. Because here's the trick: if you're a programmer and you've been working on things that were assignments and you created things from scratch, that's great. Or if they're your own ideas you've created from scratch, that's great. But what they want is, are you capable of taking an existing system and fixing it or maintaining it? And if you've worked on an open source project, then the answer is yes, you can. And you've proven it. And
Yeah.
you've proven your value. And so you're worth paying a salary to because you're going to provide value to your employer. And that's the whole point of getting money. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm worth it. You just pay me for my.
I love that idea of going to
That's worth
different.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that idea of going to different campuses because that's where you get the students, the people that just want to improve their coding skills, even maybe even coding boot camps, even though I don't like and giving it to everybody in an approachable way as
In
well.
social way.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what the world is about now. It's about socialness,
yeah,
society, building your tribe, finding your tribe.
yes.
And it normalizes, this would normalize the conversation between new programmers or even design students or tech writers or novelists who need a paycheck, you know, photographers, people who, just all kinds of things. We could bring all these people together and
Yeah.
it normalizes participation in open source in a way that is deep in the culture.
Yeah, yeah. That it's just it's a thing that everyone just does. All
Yeah.
right. So moving away from the open source questions, because wow, it's already 59 minutes. Just some quick like fun questions that I like to ask is one, what's the first programming language you've ever learned?
Oh my God. Portrait of 77 on punch cards. That's where I'm from. So, on punch cards.
Wow. Throwback. Okay, if money wasn't an issue, I guess maybe you're. I think you're gonna say maybe this, but let's see. If if money wasn't an issue, how would you ideally spend your time, whether it's job wise or not job wise?
Um, Let me see. I would create designs. I would actually I would do this. I would
Yeah.
look at Moana every day, and I would dress her, and then I would dress myself in the same stuff, and
Yes.
put it on
I love it.
Instagram and TikTok.
Oh
That's
my
what
god, that would be so cool. It's like you and your doll dressed the same.
we just go everywhere together. Go to the park, have
I love
picnics.
it. Okay, and then
Simple
um,
life.
I'm assuming this is your dream open source project, but if do you have any other dream open source projects that you're like, if I had all the time in the world, I will create this.
And this is related because my brain is now in this track.
Yeah.
What I would want to do is create a way to take seamless patterns and convert them into knitting instructions, whether they're manual instructions or for knitting machines or both. You can have your
Ooh.
options. And this is something that All Yarns Are Beautiful out of Berlin started several years ago, and I think it's gone dormant. But it's a worthy project, and I would love it if we could do that. It's just that way,
Yeah.
and then we can inform it. We can send it to these 3D knitting. And so what you get from these new electro looms or whatever would actually fit individual people. Because you could get a 3D knitted garment, but it still needs to fit you. Right?
Yeah.
So
That's
there's a way to connect in with that.
that's cool. That's a cool idea. All right. Last two questions. How do you pronounce the word GIF? Do you say GIF or GIF?
Gift, got
And then what's your favorite Beyonce song, if you have one?
um, Run the World, girl.
Okay, yeah, Who Runs the
I
World?
love that.
Girl.
The
Yeah,
video is
that's a fun
fantastic
song.
too.
That's a fun song. We have a few questions in the audience, and then we will really wrap up. And I think you kind of mentioned this already. Someone said, "Will ChatGPT play a role in season 2D?"
I would love to do this where you just tell it what to do and it just does it. It's like, so you have this video. I mean, so you have basically Alexa for design.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, create a draft that uses this as the full length measurement and this is the, and then do this and then do that and then just converts it into the. I
You
mean,
could
seriously,
you could
that would
probably
be
make
great.
a ChatGPT plugin that would do that, I
So
think.
if you want to do that, Ramchandra, let's talk.
Yeah. And then someone asked if you also
I
so.
learned to sew when I was 4. My
Oh,
grandmother and great aunts were winning like blue ribbons and county fairs back in the day when they did that, and they taught me that. So I feel like I'm right at that intersection where that world was dying out
yeah.
and women in computing was starting up. And
Wow.
so I'm kind of in that intersection there where I was able to create this. I tell myself I'm one of the few people that could have created this project, but that's probably not true. It's just I just happened to have that insight at that moment. You know.
I don't know. I think you're one of the
I don't know.
I like you were what the fashion industry needed. Someone said the fashion industry, no, the fashion world can be vast, but will open source, I think they're trying to say with open source by their side, it'll be revolutionary. Okay, awesome. So y'all, people are asking him if they can integrate their projects, if they can like be part of it. Yes, you can. Go ahead to github.com/fashion freedom/seamly2d and reach out to Sue if you have any ideas or thoughts or want to connect about like what y'all want to incorporate. Reach out to her at hello.seamly.net. I wanted to thank Sue for providing your time and knowledge on this stream, and then just for creating Seamly as well. Like this is an awesome project that I think is really gonna. I mean, it's already sounds like it's making waves in the fashion industry overall. So really appreciate it. And thank you to the audience as well for tuning in, being really engaged, asking questions, and just showing general interest about contributing. I'm excited to see what y'all make. And Sue, do you have any last things that you wanted to mention before we completely go?
Just thank you so much for your podcast. This is wonderful. It's been a great experience. And I'm really enjoying being in the GitHub Accelerator program. I feel very
Yes.
honored to have been chosen among all these. There are all these tech projects, and they're interoperable with all these tech stacks, and they do these amazing deep tech things. And I'm like, oh, I'm just fashion. I'm just here. Don't pay attention to me. I'll be in the back, sitting up against the wall. I'll just watch you guys.
No, I was excited to see your project in there. I was like, oh, we have some like cool things aren't just the average like another framework or a API or whatever. Like I was like, this is cool. All right.
I'm happy to be there, and it's lovely to meet you, Betsy.
Yeah, nice meeting you as well. Okay, thank you all. I know that we're a little bit over time. I don't want to take more of your time. So thank y'all. Tune back in next Friday for the next project. I think I'm talking with Simon Willison about data and how he's transforming data. So thank y'all so much and have a great Friday. Bye.